from wherever you're watching us on the continent of Africa and beyond. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for once again joining us on this Thursday, of course, on the show we call Report Desk Africa, or RDA as we like to call it, on this hot Thursday evening, preaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria, from the studios of News Central TV. My name is Bernard Akede.
And then I am back again on your screen, standing in for Blessings Musugu. My name is Adesewa Odusoga. Thank you for joining us. And then today on Report Desk Africa, our conversation for today's episode cycles around events in South Africa and East Africa, with issues ranging from the ban on pit bulls as a result of attacks on humans in South Africa and the impact of Twitter layoffs in Africa. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Now, the first part of the program takes us to South Africa, where pitbull ownership rages on as dog attacks on people make the headlines. Now, this, however, called for a ban by some people, while others are not in support. Now, some celebrities are already getting involved on both sides of the debate. Now, since the last mauling to death cases, some pitbull owners have surrendered their dogs for euthanization, that is to put to sleep or put to death. Now, but there are those who are unwilling and are against the calls for bans, and for good reasons too. Now, these dogs are beloved members of their families, and in some cases, they protect the owners from crime too. So let's talk about whether the ban is necessary or not. Why are their attacks so fatal and dangerous? Is it a case of nurture over nature? And is it time for breed-specific legislation in South Africa? Well, our correspondent, Dapo Adegboye, would help us understand the story better in this report.
Following a series of vicious attacks on innocent citizens, including young children, there has been a call for the immediate ban of pit bulls in South Africa. This call comes as other countries like Russia, the United Kingdom, and parts of Australia, among a host of other countries, have either banned or put restriction on ownership or its importation. Pitbull type dogs typically have muscular, stocky builds with deep chest and large square heads. They are notoriously determined dogs. When given a task, they won't give up easily. They can love people, including strangers, and crave attention. Training and socialization from a young age are important for pit bulls. Otherwise, their size and strength can be difficult to handle, as they might pull hard or lash on at other people. According to dogbite.org, in 13 years between 2005 and 2017, pitbull attacks were responsible for 284 fatalities in the United States alone. This accounted for 65.5% of the total number of dog attacks that caused a fatality during this period. However, Johannesburg-based pitbull owners and breeders are not convinced that a petition and calls for the banning of the animals as domestic pets will succeed. They claim that since the petition recently started circulating, they had seen an increase in the demand for pit bulls. According to them, most people didn't necessarily see pit bulls as pets that can be part of their families, but for security functions, given the increase in crime rate. But again, at what cost?
I don't know where to begin, actually, because the last image that you saw, there was a pit bull actually training like a heavyweight boxer. Okay, maybe a cruiserweight boxer, but then we have our guest who would help us dissect this better. Now, joining us to discuss this is the manager, Special Investigations Unit, National Council of Societies for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in South Africa, the Senior Inspector, Nazareth Appalsamy. And also we have the Public Relations Officer, Sporting American Pitbull Terror Club of Nigeria, Andrew Magege. Thank you so much, Andrew. We expect Nazareth to join us much later. Thank you for joining the show, Andrew. All right, thank you. Okay, we have Nazareth. Nazareth, thank you for joining us as well.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Now, I think I'm going to jump straight into this. We know that dogs are, like they say, is a man's best friend, or dogs are man's best friends. First of all, of course, dogs, regarded, I beg your pardon, as amazing animals and good friends. I'm a dog lover myself. But then, why is this particular breed of dogs, seeming to be so dangerous? It's not the first time we're seeing pit bulls mauling people, attacking people, and seemingly being uncontrolled and uncontrollable by some of their owners. What exactly happens at the point where the owner is unable to control the pit bull? Andrew, this is going to you actually.
Okay, first of all, I'll start by saying there are no bad dogs. I only say they are irresponsible dog owner, or should I say bad owner. The reason why I said this is, as a responsible dog owner, you should know the kind of dog that you have, and you know how to control that dog. You understand? For example, I like to clear some misconceptions. Pit bulls are not guard dogs. They're hunting dogs. First of all, that's one misconception people have concerning the breed. Then we have another problem, which is a lot of breeds look so much like the American Pitbull Terrier. So in that way, a lot of people could confuse other breeds for the American Pitbull Terrier. They can't use the name Pitbull as an umbrella. So what that means, if a Staffordshire Terrier or an American Bully, or maybe an American Bulldog, or other breeds, so most a person, they could also say it's a Pitbull. Because a lot of people cannot differentiate the difference between these breeds.
Okay, Nazareth, I'm coming to you now. Could you shed more light on what exactly is going on with the cause, with the, would I say, polarization of the cause for either pit bulls being banned and then those who are, still cheering to have their pit bulls be with them? What exactly is going on in South Africa? Why are we seeing increasing attacks by pit bull terrors on people?
Yeah, so there's been at least 5 incidents recently, and when I say recently, in the last 6 months, where children have been killed by pit bull attacks. And I think that's what sparked it, is that it's children that are the victims. I think there are pit bull bites that occur, or attacks, if we want to call it, but they go unnoticed, or people are too scared to report it. So the National Council of SPCAs, which is the largest animal welfare organization in Africa, we certainly do not support the ban of any breed. What we are calling for is stronger laws, stronger regulations to control the breed. We want these animals and owners to have permits. We want people to be more responsible. We want these dogs microchipped. We want them sterilized. And we're calling for better control for these animals. And if you look at the current situation in South Africa, we're having multiple owners surrendering their animals all across the country to SPCAs, and a huge burden has been put on SPCAs in South Africa. And our resources are being challenged at the moment, and so is our finances. But we have appealed to government to intervene, as the public have clearly taken the law into their own hands when it comes to mob justice. I say mob justice. And it's very unfortunate that some of the animals have been burnt alive, stoned, stabbed, and it's getting out of control very quickly.
So, Nazareth, as much as I do not support animal cruelty here, well, Bernard said he's a lover of dogs. I'm not. I apologize. I do not like dogs. They scare me a lot. But then, we've seen over time that owning a dog or taking custody of one is by choice. And we've seen some people hold, the ownership of dogs so dear that it even belongs a part of a family. Now, when you talk, where do we draw the line in a means to, ensure responsibility of the owners, then try not to take away the pets from the pet owners, and also try to safeguard these children that are at risk?
Now, and that's a good question. And the answer to that is that you're indeed correct. There are thousands of pit bull owners, not just in South Africa, but across the world that can claim that the animals that they have show no aggression, never attacked, and they are quite placid and great with children. And what we are saying is that not the average Joe soap should own this animal. And if someone wants to own it, it's not about being rich or poor. It's about the fact that if you want to own this animal, you need to understand the breed. You need to understand that the animal gets aroused very quickly. You need to dedicate at least 2 hours to the animal. If you have children, you need to introduce them and not leave them alone with this dog. So the owner ultimately needs to take responsibility for this animal. And if the owner has a secure property and if he understands the breed, then there should be no problem. But the problem in South Africa is that this breed is used for dog fighting. And dog fighting is rife and illegal in South Africa. And if we look at the informal sector, nearly every single person has a pit bull in built up communities. And it's not just a status symbol. People use it for the protection of property because the animal's appearance and its muscle. And people think that, well, these make great guard dogs, when the reality is that they actually don't. And there are many other animals out there that could do the same. And I'm not trying to demonize the breed. That's not what we're trying to do. What we are saying is that if you want to own this animal, then get a license for it. We are calling upon the national government in South Africa to create better laws for the owning of power breeds.
You're talking about the owning. Andrew, I'm coming to you, but before I go to you, I'll continue with Nazareth. You just talked about the government creating proper laws. That was the next question I was going to ask you. Now, we know that there are some laws surrounding the ownership of pets in South Africa and in other countries across Africa as well. But have these laws been able to address properly the core social problems behind these dogs' aggressive behaviors, which is responsible for for ownership, basically? How can these laws that are currently in place now begin to address some of these issues if they are already in place?
That's a good question. And the answer to that is that we do not have national law. What we have is municipalities across the country and in provinces that enforce municipal bylaws. And the challenge we have with bylaws is that it is only as good as if you have enforcement officers. So a good example would be like a province that stipulates that you are only allowed to have 2 dogs per property. But having said that, there are properties in the country that have between 30 and 40 pit bulls per property. And this is where breeders are allowed to breed in South Africa with no restrictions, no regulations, no laws. And these are the challenges we face. And this is why we're calling to government to regulate the breeding industry so that a person that wants to breed a pit bull, that they have a permit. And of course, in South Africa, the pit bulls are also used for shows. Because of their muscle, they are used to compete in various shows.
We're seeing one of such. So, sorry to interrupt you. We're seeing one of such on screen where a pit bull is actually pulling a vehicle, and I'm seeing one now mauling, mauling some kind of. This looks like metal sheets. Are some of these shows even, legal? Should they be allowed? Are they permitted?
So shows are allowed in South Africa, and I use the word allowed in inverted commas because it only becomes an offense when an offense is committed. So a good example would be that cropping of ears is completely illegal in South Africa. And shows, there are rules and in shows with regards to animals competing. In other words, the animal must be fit to compete. There's a veterinarian present. The animals are screened before competing. And we look at classification as to what they compete in, which is normally high jump, long hang, weight pull, and of course, wall climb. And these shows are monitored by the SPCA. And if there are any contraventions in the show, we will take legal action.
Andrew, I understand that you're back. Now, I would put this question to you. As much as we know that, I mean, we've seen the features of this pitbull. You know, this, you say they have muzzles. They are used for trainings. They are used for shows. Some use it, to safeguard their homes. And I believe that if we are going to have a domestic pet, it shouldn't have, I mean, such, wild features such as the one that we have for pit bulls now. I mean, we've also seen that this animal has actually been banned in many, European countries. We have it banned in the UK, Venezuela, Denmark, Ecuador, and the likes. If they can be pronounced, if there can be a pronouncement like that in those countries, it means that they must have had an episode of, attacks in the past. So, can we just agree that these animals are not soft enough to be called domestic animals? Because judging by the attacks that have been carried out in the past, and especially these are children, so it looks as though these animals go for those that appear to be weaker and who cannot even fight themselves. Do you think that they should still be allowed to be domestic pets?
I would say yes, and the reason is because there are a lot of attacks everywhere from different dogs. But when it comes to the Pitbull, the American Pitbull Terrier, because of the stigma attached to the breed, the media, carries it and makes it look like they are very, very dangerous animals. The truth is, there are a lot of breeds that also attack people. They are doing their job as
all right.
But for the American Pitbull Terrier, I like to talk based on that. The American Pitbull Terrier is not a guard dog, first of all. It's not a guard dog. It's a apology.
Andrew, are you still there?
Now, this breed is known for hunting. It was the reason why the dogs were bred in the first place. But a lot of breeders have bred them to other dogs like mastiffs to make them have that bulky side that a lot of people see. So I would like to first clear misconception. The dogs I see in these videos, many of them are Staffordshire Terriers, many of them are American Bullies. They are not American Pitbull Terriers. So if these kind of dogs go about attacking people, they will use the general name, which is Pitbull, but they are not Pitbulls. So if we can clear the misconception in the breed by making people understand that there are different breeds that look like the American Pitbull Terrier. Now, if we can do that, we can now ascertain or identify which particular breed did damage. The real American Pitbull Terrier has no ounce of human aggression. In fact, it's a fault in the breed standard. Because they are hunting dogs. If they catch a prey, the owner should be able to take whatever they catch, maybe a rabbit or a wild pig, out of their mouth. So they should have 0 ounce of human aggression. Human aggression is a fault in the breed. I have over 30 American Pitbull Terriers. I know a lot of breeders that pick pitbulls. You can go to their house and take their pitbulls and walk away with them. They will not attack any human. In fact, you need a dog to guard them because they have 0 human aggression. They can't do security jobs. So I'm talking about the real American Pitbull Terrier, not American Bullies, not Staffordshire Terrier, not mixes of both, maybe American Bulldogs, because many of these attacks we see, I always like to blame it on the owners. Like I said earlier, there are no bad dogs, there are only bad owners. A responsible dog owner should understand the nature of the dog he has and know how to correct or prevent such accidents from happening. Oh, the dog should not be left roaming around. They should be confined, either in a cage or on their chain spots. Or you're taking the dog for a walk, strong leash, very good collars, or a harness. Hold the leash with both hands and don't give much room, just very close to you. Have a brake stick or a mouth guard that you can see in the image. So I'll tell you this. The American Pitbull Terriers are lovely pets. I'm 40 years old. If I don't tell some people, you cannot know. Because I do a lot of physical training exercises, and there's no better companion than the American Pitbull Terrier. I take my dog jogging every morning. If you're a sports person, there's someone who enjoys fitness, walking your dogs, you will love the breed. They are very, very good companions.
All right.
Like I said, 0 ounce of human aggression.
You-
So I'll tell you categorically, this is a very, very good breed when it comes to being a pet. They are like home dogs.
Okay, well,
Lap dogs.
well, not all of us may agree that they're like home dogs and lap dogs. I'm sure we all agree that you're a very good looking 40-year-old man. So it's good to look, to look good at 40 and keep fit. But then, yeah, I think we have our colleague Bettina Unweli, who's also standing by. She's going to give us some things from social media, basically as to people's responses on this particular matter. Bettina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. What's social media saying concerning pit bulls?
There's a lot of buzz on social media right now, Bernard, and you can imagine why. Having been bitten by a dog twice as a child, I can understand the conversations that is going on Twitter especially. Now, Label says owning a pit bull in South Africa as a pet should be illegal. If one insists they need it or they can train it well, then they must sign a binding contract that enables the law to prosecute them for assault and murder committed by their beloved pit bulls. Now, another person here says South African pit bulls are out here running amok, while Americans are out there busy with mass shootings. South Africa has a pit bull problem, while America has a dog problem, masquerading as humans. They need to be sorted out. We still have more. Anyone planning on being cruel and vicious and evil to a pit bull dog in South Africa, it is a criminal offense to abuse an animal, and you will get a criminal record. So rather, just phone your SPCA to come fetch the dog. People need to stop all of their cruel acts towards dogs. Bernard, a lot of people are not happy in South Africa, and I understand why. It's a back-to-back situation, and seriously, the government, they need to do something about it.
All right, thank you, Bettina, for that update on social media.
Thank
We
you
say
so
that
much.
we have different reactions, as much as some people are condemning and some people are in support. Okay, so I would like to throw this question out to Nazareth, if you're still there. So we hear earlier from Andrew saying that there's a certain breed of a pit bull that is being there's a misconception here. We want you to help us, make it clearer. So what breed of the pit bull is actually being reported to have, carried out such series of attacks in South Africa? Is it the American Terrier pit bull or other breeds?
Thank you very much. So, to a degree, I do agree with Andrew. So, remember, the pit bull terrier was bred for fighting. It was never bred to be human aggressive. And hundreds of years ago, when man domesticated it, and I use the word domesticated in inverted commas, that gene has been passed down from generation to generation. But it has also skipped generations, and that is how you get an animal that shows no aggression. In South Africa, we have had pit bulls that have been crossed several times, and this is true. However, predominantly, we do have the American pit bull terrier. To be very clear, the attacks in South Africa is a result of the American pit bull terrier, but the only way to confirm is through DNA testing, because what is a pit bull? Is a dog that has 70% pit bull and 30% boer bull still regarded as an American pit bull terrier? Or is it the other way around? Is a dog that has 70% boer bull and 30% pit bull still a pit bull? And this is the biggest challenge, and why countries that enforced a ban, why it did not work. And they refer to it as breed-specific legislation. And the biggest challenge with breed-specific legislation is that how do you identify a pit bull? What makes a dog a pit bull? Because there are dogs that look like pit bull but are not pit bull. And there are dogs that don't look like pit bull are pit bull. So this is the challenge that we will have with regards to a ban. And as I said earlier, the biggest problem with a ban would be enforcement, because how do you enforce this kind of legislation? But clearly in South Africa, we certainly do have the American pit bull terrier.
All right, thank you. Now, final take from the both of you gentlemen. Nazareth, what would you say if would be your suggestion or your advice to people who own these dogs, and then people who have to be wary of these dogs, basically, in 30 seconds?
I think that if you own the dog right now, and if you feel uncomfortable about your dog and you are worried about your children, then you should do the responsible thing and surrender it to the SPCA instead of giving it to your neighbor or instead of giving it to a friend. However, if you own a dog and if you are quite comfortable and if you have proper property and the animal, you understand its behavior, and you've got absolutely nothing to worry about, and that you shouldn't panic. And that any permitting or licensing will only protect the breed. So if you're a pit bull lover, you've got absolutely nothing to worry about.
All right, thank you so much. And Andrew, finally from you, 30 seconds, what's your advice to people who own these dogs and people who should be wary of these dogs? What will you tell both parties?
Okay, my final words would be let dog owners be more responsible, whether you have a Rottweiler or a Caucasian or an American Pitbull Terrier. Try to be more responsible with your dogs. Take your dogs for walks to burn out those energies, because you feed your dogs daily. Unutilized energy turns to anxiety. Anxiety becomes frustration. Frustration becomes aggression. So there's a need for one to always walk their dogs, socialize with their dogs. Then, like I said, but everything should be on the owner, the dog owners, which means you should take full responsibility for that dog. Put your dog in a chain, confine it, keep it in a cage. Do not leave your dog roaming up and down. And again, always supervise the dog. You don't want to leave your child or any child with a dog or any animal unsupervised. That is not being responsible. So right. I'll talk to the dog owners out there and dog lovers. They should become more responsible owners.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Andrew and Nazareth, thank you so much for joining us on the program. And we do hope that the cases of dogs attacking people will definitely reduce in South Africa and other parts of the continent as well. Thank you so much once again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, Shewa, I know that you clearly are not exactly a dog lover, so even if I was thinking of buying you a cute Chihuahua for Christmas, you wouldn't take that. And for someone like Bettina, who says she's been beaten twice by dogs.
I've not been beaten, but I have bad experiences when it comes to dogs. I've had neighbors who rear dogs, and I still do. And as much as I probably love to feed them, from my leftovers, do not come near me. If I have to feed you, just stay miles away while I feed you, but do not come near me. Because unfortunately, I've also witnessed a case where I do not know what the breed of the dog, but a dog owned by my neighbor who used to sell dogs actually attacked one of the tenants, and we lost the baby girl about 6 years. She was alone with the dog in the house. The father was out to get the dog's food. Then by the time he's back, the dogs had done so much damage, and then she gave up the ghost at the hospital. So from the PTSDs from events like that would never make me come near dogs. So I do not accept them as pets.
I think I totally understand. And just like Nazareth said, the onus lies on the owners of the dog to be more responsible with their pets, whatever pets they are, dogs, monkeys, cats, whatever pets at all. Anyway, thank you so much to the guests we've had. We'll be taking this quick break, and we'll be going from South Africa to the western part of Africa. We're moving from animals to another type of animal, but it's a social media animal now. We're talking about Twitter. Do stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching Report Desk Africa. If you're just tuning in, you just missed the first part of the show. Now we are moving on to the western part of Africa. Now the world is changing rapidly, and Africa is no exception. The future of technology in Africa is important, as the continent has a lot of human capital that can take advantage of the emerging advances in digital technology. However, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, Twitter, has been criticized for the abrupt and unprofessional manner in which layoffs were carried out in Ghana. What will be the impact of this on those who were sacked, other employees working with multinational companies in Africa, and its impacts on the continent at large? All these questions are begging for answers. But before we can call on the tech journalists, we'll be standing more to shed more light on it. Let's see this report that was packaged by our correspondent, Bettina Oweli.
Many African countries face challenges that include security, infrastructure, education, and a host of others. But the young people have forged paths towards sustainability for themselves and their families through tech and innovation. Africa is a darling of the tech world today because of the energy, passion, and ingenuity of its young people. One of such breakthroughs came with the establishment of the Twitter headquarters in Ghana.
We were all excited when Twitter was opening an office in Ghana because so that our stories or our solutions to problems which are unique to Africa could be solved by our own people and not people who think they understand what Africa is about.
Twitter has been criticized for the abrupt and unprofessional manner in which layoffs were carried out. CEO Elon Musk has tweeted that employees who were affected were offered 3 months of severance pay. However, this is not the case for employees in Accra, Ghana, where sources say the staff were told that they were being laid off without information on their exit packets or next steps.
It's a comparison between what happened to other Twitter employees across the world and what's happened in Ghana. And that action has been called out, and there are discussions ongoing to get a fair situation for all parties.
Africa does have a lot of talent, I wouldn't lie. I've met a lot of developers and a lot of tech talent in Africa, and I can say that some of them are even doing marvelous things for these companies that come here after they become big in the West. As to whether we need to create our own platform, it goes without saying. Nobody can solve our problems better than us.
This recent development has left many Africans working in multinational organizations to have a rethink on job security.
So I think typically there are three source documents that employees can make reference to just generally give them a sense of calmness about situations like this. One is what are the labor laws within your operating environment in your country and the local labor laws. Secondly, what is on your employment contract? And then three, the corporate human resources policy document in your organization. So typically, multinationals are known to have best practices because they have operations across the world. So they will typically want a uniform experience for all their employees across the world.
While Twitter users hope that their beloved app will not become a shadow of what they once enjoyed, African workers in multinational organizations hope that stricter measures will be put in place by appropriate agencies to help secure their jobs. Bettina Nweli, reporting for News Central.
Now joining us to unravel or uncover this conversation is, Editor-in-Chief of Africa Web, all the way from Ghana, Ismail Akwe. Thank you so much for joining us, Ismail. And of course, our correspondent, Dakwa Digboye, is also going to join us in this conversation. Ismail, I must bring it back again. I see you wearing the Ghanaian jersey. I hope that by the time we're done, I will still be able to tweet and either troll or praise Ghana after facing Portugal.
I'm going to praise Ghana.
I'm sure we will.
Ghana is not happy for what happened to the Twitter stuff.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so quickly jumping into it now, setting up of Twitter space or Twitter office in Ghana was an exciting development for Ghana and for the rest of Africa, in general. But with the change of leadership has come a lot of drama. Now, are there any employment laws in Ghana that could have protected the staff from this sudden disengagement from this organization?
Well, indeed, Ghana has employment laws, and we have the Labor Act 2003. That's the Act 651, was put together in 2003. This Labor Act protects staff, but unfortunately, it only works after it has happened. So there's no protection before a possible redundancy or sack of any staff by any company. So currently, the Twitter staff that have been disengaged, they filed a petition to the Ghana Labour Commission, and the Labour Commission is hearing their case currently as I speak with you. However, we've not heard anything from the Commission, but definitely the laws would work because the laws are there to serve that purpose.
Okay. Now, are there any laws protecting the staff of other multinational organizations or multinational companies, not just Twitter now? Others, are they the same across board, or do they vary depending on the type of organization, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, they are the same laws for all organizations. However, these multinational organizations are supposed to also give themselves or let the governments, the authorities, know about their existence in the country, so that when anything happens, the government can step in to serve or to solve problems that may or problems that may affect the locals. So this Twitter issue, for instance, one thing that the staff are fighting for is that they were not given enough notice, even though they were given a month's notice. So per our labor law, any multinational company is supposed to tell even the authorities of the country 3 months prior that they are going to leave the staff redundant. And this wasn't done. So this is one case that they want to go ahead with in court or with the Labor Commission. And later, if it has to go to court, that's going to happen. So these laws are there, and just a few people who know about them until there's a crisis, because the laws normally are there or are more reactive than more proactive. And unfortunately, that's what the situation is.
All right, so from the look of things now, the fired staff, you said that they are aware of the laws, and I'm sure that Twitter, the management of Twitter, and of course Elon Musk is also aware of these laws before carrying out the action. But according to them, this is not the way the staff in the US and other countries were treated. Does this have anything to do with being African?
Well, clearly it looks like the Twitter staff, those who send the emails, are not aware of the law, because they were more reactive to the concerns of the staff that they fired. And what you see from the reaction that came after CNN put out a story saying this had happened to them, then they got a reaction. And 5 hours ago, they also got a reaction after they got a lawyer and also filed a case with the Labor Commission. I understand currently Twitter is having a negotiation with them, which is what they should have done even before they sent them the email.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so I'll bring in Dapo now. Adigwe. Dapo, are you there? So we see that there's been a lot of back and forth happening. And then the most surprising thing is this is happening about 4 days after the physical office was opened. So we see a lot of these things happening, even within African countries. Do you think that, sagas such as this will in any way affect staff working in other multinational companies in Ghana, or even affect more multinational companies that are looking at investing in African countries?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and as always, super excited to be here. Of course, it will have a ripple effect, because right now employees will be more conscious that employees working for multinationals in African countries will be more conscious and aware. I wouldn't be surprised if people go back to visit their terms of agreement or terms of engagement again to see if some of these clauses have been tidied up. It's a big eye opener for Africa, because looking at the way and the process of disengagement in America, and then you compare the way it was done in Africa, you want to ask, why the discrimination in a way? So I think it will affect the relationship, that's the business or work relationship between employees and their employer, that's multinational employers. And of course, people right now would want to ask, should an event of probably a change in management, a change of ownership, what is the faith of me, an employee, with this organization, probably that even started from the inception? And generally, just to talk on it, Elon Musk has been a very successful, well, I call him businessman now.
Businessman, yeah.
As early as age, before he was 20 or even 25, his very first invention or startup was the Zip2, which was acquired by Compaq, and then he went ahead to be a partner, a starting partner of PayPal, which was also acquired, and then he founded Uber, which he also sold off. And right now we are talking of SpaceX, we are talking of Twitter, right? But the difference with Twitter, even though you want to say, fine, Elon Musk is a brilliant businessman, the difference is that all of these other businesses, he founded it. So he built it from scratch. I think Twitter is the first he's acquiring. So Twitter, was a bit established or has been established, and then Elon Musk, bought into it. But the thing is this, I think this is just my own personal opinion on this. I think where he's making a big mistake is, instead of this, massive layoff, which is saying, is eating into the budget, it needs to cut, the amount he's spending on salaries and all. You could have at least brought in, at least the key people, those that understand the workings of this. So for me, I just think that probably we might just see, the beginning of the end of Twitter.
Ismail, do you think this is going to affect Twitter users in Ghana now? Maybe in solidarity for what their brothers and sisters have faced in the hands of the employers. Do you think this will affect the way they use Ghana, the way they use Twitter? I beg your pardon. Do you think they'll pull out of Twitter and join other social media spaces maybe?
Well, so far what we are seeing is a little bit of indifference because a lot of Ghanaians are going about their normal duties on Twitter. Even those who have been fired are still on Twitter and they are tweeting. And I don't see how this is going to affect anything. But where I see an effect is with the government. If you remember, the Ghana government supported Twitter to come to Ghana. And they were very vocal about it, including the president who tweeted. And now that this has happened, there's no tweet from the presidency, there's no tweet from anybody saying, oh, this has happened and that we are helping these guys to get what they deserve. Nobody's saying anything. And that's a bit sad. And looking forward to the future, I think if any government wants to be involved in such, welcoming activities or bringing some foreign investors into the country, they would have to think about the people so that the people would definitely have their own rights respected if in case the company wants to fold or if in case the company is sold to another person. So far, that discussion is not being had, but I want to believe that it's being done in closed doors because it's indeed a shame to the Canadian government as well because they are involved.
Very true.
All right, so Ismail, let me ask you now. We see that as much as this is happening, Twitter has a significant impact on, when it comes to free speech accountability with African governments and versus the people. We saw what it did for NSAS. We saw what it did in other, protests, online protests in other African countries. As Dakwa stated, even if this becomes the end of Twitter in Africa, shouldn't African countries be talking about developing a local tech company now, like that would serve as our own indigenous social media, platform,
yeah.
like that would probably look like Twitter or even better? Is it time?
It's been time for a long time because so many people are developing platforms like Twitter, and there are so many like that. However, the difficulty we have in Africa is a lot of the developers don't want to include other people who could help make the tech product quite attractive to everybody. You see people develop their own product, they leave it, they want to hold it and protect it. No proper investment, no proper plans to develop it. You see that the product design doesn't look good, the UI, the UX, all of that need more work to be done. But they hold on to it till it dies. And this is one problem we have, even with Facebook, even with Twitter. So many people were added, so many shares were acquired and other things like that just to move on it. So to do this, Africa, one has to close down all the borders because even with movements it's difficult. So for something done by a Nigerian or built and upbuilt by a Nigerian to come to Ghana, it's going to be difficult because the first reaction you get is, oh, why can't you do this? You can do this also. Then there's this kind of competition. So competition also affects us. But if we really want to do it, then I think the authorities, the powers that be, have to back it. So let's assume the African Union, for instance. Even let's go to West Africa and say ECOWAS supports a certain app and make sure the staff is diversified. Where we have people from Ghana, from Nigeria, all these tech people come together, the developers, come together to do it, and then they will use their means and also their power to push this app that will be created. Yes, it will work, but we're not united. So that's the problem we have, even in our business.
All right. Thank you so much, Ismail Akwe. Thank you so much for actually wading into this matter. And I totally agree with you. Africa and Africans need to be able to push our own products so that Africa and Africans can eventually patronize. Thank you once again, Ismail, and thank you, Dakpo Adigboye, for joining us on this particular conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. We would go straight into our forecast segment and take a look at what the African continent may be looking at in the coming week. Do stay with us.
Discussing the forecast from Zimbabwe today, and we hear that Alan Chaffer has been shortlisted for the 2023 Africa Prize for Engineering Solutions. I think that's a big deal, and the shortlisted innovations will provide engineering solutions crucial to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Now, moving away from Zimbabwe, we're going to go into Somalia straight, and in Somalia, they have launched a new TV channel named Daljer to counter Al-Shabaab's propaganda against the government as it intensifies against the media. That is something that is definitely worth looking out for. And finally, we'll end by moving to Sudan, where half of the country's 18 states have registered 1,430 cases and 9 deaths recorded according to the World Health Organization from dengue fever. That one is very serious, and I think the authorities need to put more eyes, more hands to make sure that all of this is sorted out very, very quickly.
Definitely. I think, like you said, it's a good one that a new media outfit or a TV station is opening up to counter the propaganda that Al-Shabaab is putting out there. And I think the same should happen in other African countries where they're having militant issues, so that propaganda like that will, gradually be phased out. Thank you so much, Bettina, and everybody else who's been on the show. Adesewa, a great one. Let's leave the dog issue because I know you don't like dogs. But Twitter, if Twitter is going to be, taken out, I beg your pardon, from social media spaces, how would you feel?
Bad, because the first time when Nigeria had to place a ban on the use of Twitter, it affected me badly. I was part of those that use VPN to bypass it, but it wasn't as interesting as it used to be. And I think Twitter Nigeria did not come back to the time of the ban that we had then, and it's quite unfortunate. But if Twitter is doing, I learned that Elon Musk actually started his life in South Africa. So if we have to treat Africans like that, I do not know what message is trying to pass across, to encourage the young Africans, especially those in the tech sector. Definitely. It's quite unfortunate.
All right, well, we definitely hope that Twitter will continue, and if it doesn't, just like Ismail said, Africa and Africans should be able to push forth our own social media platforms where we can interact with one another, and the various agencies should also take charge of that. All right, thank you so much for joining us again. Another wonderful Thursday has come and gone on Report Desk Africa. My name is Bernard Akede. We'd like to use this opportunity to thank everyone who's been a part of this show from the beginning to the end. Again, my name is Bernard Akede. See you again same time next week, and I'm not alone.
And my name is Adesewa Odusoga, and I hope to see you again next week. That is if Blessings is not around.
Okay, have a nice evening.